Well, you know, I look at this stage, Phil, with a whole lot of glee, although when I was a bike rider, I didn't. The riders moving away from Aix-les-Bains, and almost immediately they go into the big alpine passes. 208 kilometers or 129 miles, but this really is the first superb mountain stage they'll face. They've got the three major climbs, all of them without categorization, but a small climb to begin with, the Col de Fresnes. But after that, it's through Albertville, the site of the 2000 Olympic Games, the 1996 Olympic Games, but this is what the rider's thinking about. The Col de la Madeleine, as they go over the summit, 6,500 feet of climbing, dropping down into the valley, then over the Col de Glandon at 6,300 feet, I should say. Then it's down the valley all the way to Bourg d'Oisans, and the final ascent to the Alpe d'Huez, 6,000 meters of climbing. That's what it looks like. It is absolutely incredible, and those last three climbs, Phil, are where the race is literally going to explode.
And if Lance Armstrong had any fears about the might of Telecom, then he was right to be worried, because here we now look at the riders with about 8 kilometers to climb to the top of the Col de Madeleine, which was a 25-kilometer climb. That's a 15 miles climb, bringing them up to a height of 6,562 feet, or 2,000 meters. Now, a lot of riders have been dropped, including the Maillot Jaune O'Grady, currently nearly 3 minutes behind. So too the third man overall, Bram de Groot, and a lot of riders have gone backwards with him. Only one retirement. 173 started this morning. The champion of Belgium has gone now, Ludovic Capel, making 172, facing up to the finish at Alpe d'Huez at the moment.
A little update on the race situation just now. There are three riders off the front of the main group, with Lance Armstrong and Jan Ulrich. Laurent Roux, the rider from Jean de la Tour, he's there, Eladio Jimenez and Antonio Tola. But this is the yellow jersey group of Stuart O'Grady. But O'Grady spoke to us last evening, Phil, and he said he felt he'd had a great tour so far, but his body was starting to get very tired, and he didn't expect to keep hold of the yellow jersey. But he will run out the green leader in the green jersey competition at the end of today, because he still precedes Eric Zabel there by 9 points. Last time we had any information, Eric Zabel was in the same group as Stuart O'Grady. But looking down the group, there is the green jersey of Eric Zabel in second position in that points competition today. And this group are going to probably lose by the end of the day, somewhat in the region of 25 to 30 minutes. This is the Autobus, the bunch of riders who just want to stay inside the time limit at the Tour de France.
Well, to update you with the day's action now, after 6 kilometers today, three riders got away: Eladio Jimenez, Antonio Tola and Laurent Roux. They built a lead of over 13.5 minutes before they reached the Col de la Madeleine, and then the select riders applied tremendous pressure on the climb. We've seen that big bunch with the yellow jersey already 3 minutes behind. We're now looking at the Telecom team with Ulrich in white, and Lance Armstrong has lost a lot of his teammates around him. Harass is still with him, we know that. He is certainly here. Those two are the only two that we are confirmed with having in here. Yergaard fell off but remounted. Tyler has been in difficult as well. The tempo has been very, very fast from the word go today, an average speed in excess of 25 miles an hour as they approach the Col de la Madeleine. That is incredibly quick.
Very rapid start to the day, and that's why a lot of these riders were really pumping. Again, at the back of the group, this is George Hincapie, one of the lieutenants for the flat stages. George today has to try and survive and just keep himself in the Tour de France. But I think we can now understand just why Lance Armstrong's team didn't chase that big breakaway that got 34 minutes over the field. The reason is because he wanted to conserve energy in his team. They've absolutely been blown apart today, and it's all under the pressure of the big, strong Deutsche Telekom team. Maybe they were right in making the decision to bring a team here just to support Jan Ulrich and let Eric Zabel ride his own sprints.
Well, Lance Armstrong is reported as being very nervous at the start this morning. I'm not surprised. He might find himself isolated in this year's Tour de France, because the US Postal team do not seem as strong at the moment. He's going to call on a lot of help from Roberto Heras now as riders start coming off the back of this group. Names who are in the immediate group behind the two leaders and the one chaser now, because Towler just being dropped here by Roux and Jimenez. Lance Armstrong and Jan Ulrich are in there. Christophe Moreau is in there. Baldato we've seen in trouble. He's still listed as being in there. And Gert Heyen, Patrick Algon, well, he's certainly not there, Algon, because we saw him dropped a little bit earlier on. But Francois Simon is in the Armstrong group, and he is, at the moment, the next candidate for the yellow jersey. And in fact, at the moment, he is the race leader on the road, because the yellow jersey of Stuart O'Grady riding extremely sensibly, not trying to be a hero and destroy himself on the first climb. He's gone backwards, and he's measuring his effort right up to the finish today.
These are riders who are getting dropped off the main group of all the contenders just now. We didn't see so far or hear on race radio anything concerning the position of Bobby Julich in the field, but I would assume that Bobby Julich must be in that group with Armstrong and Ullrich right now, because the kind of riders who are being dropped indicates that Julich should still be remaining in there. He stands a chance this year of riding up into the top places when the race gets back up to Paris, as he did in 1998 when he finished third overall. This is one of the tougher riders of Team Telecom. He's done his job for the day right now. He's toughened the pace up, and what he's done is forced a lot of riders to get blown out of the back of the main field right now.
Well, this is a very serious situation. It's not often you see a tour like this. Nicky Sorensen was the rider in white for CSC, just going off the back as we get up to the main chase here, which contains Ullrich and Armstrong. But Paul, this is turning out to be an incredible ride. At this stage, it's such a hard day. Bartley is going off the back as well now. They are ripping the field apart. The riders just popping off the back, one after another. There's going to be nobody left up there by the next climb.
I think a lot of the big contenders were very worried about that big margin given to riders like Francois Simon and Andrei Kivilev. Kivilev, in fact, is around about 11.5 minutes in front of Bobby Julich in the standings, and he's not a bad climber. If they want to turn this Tour de France back to the way we expected it to be during the mountains, they've got to hit hard on the first mountain stage, and that's exactly what Team Telecom have decided to do. This may well be a psychological move between Ullrich and Armstrong, because I think US Postal today are having serious difficulty. They've seen a lot of riders getting dropped. Victor Hugo Peña has been left off the back of the group. Here it looks very much like Tyler Hamilton. Now this is Kaya, because he's the man who had the crash earlier on today. You could see his shorts there just ripped at the back. So Armstrong losing a lot of men from his troop today, and this is going to be very difficult on a stage like this when he was expecting to have a lot of riders around him to support him.
Perez, a Spanish rider on Festina there, and Unai Echeverria, another rider who usually climbs well, has now cracked too. As we get higher, there's still a long way to climb up the land, so those who are thinking of taking it easy and catching back up on the descent, it's going to be tough.
10 kilometers to the summit of the climb for these riders in the group right now, and a lot of men going right out of the back because of this very early pressure that's been put onto the field.
As we continue up the climb of the Madeleine now, the riders are in serious difficulty here. Remember that ahead of these riders are the two riders setting the pace by just about 10 minutes, so they're a lot nearer the summit, of course. But the action is right here. This is the action where they are going to continue to try and chip away at the lead. But more importantly, the big boys now are measuring themselves against each other, and the pressure has been enormous so far. US Postal have seen their riders dropping off one by one. The best young rider has gone now, Jörg Jatsk as well. Kevin Livingstone is the rider setting the pace. Now there's the irony to the tale now. He was the man who was was riding alongside Lance Armstrong a year ago, and is now driving for the opposition.
The big advantage of having a man like Kevin Livingstone for Jan Ullrich is that he knows exactly what Lance Armstrong is going through. They are really long friends, Armstrong and Livingstone. It was it had a big effect on their friendship when Kevin changed over to go to Team Telecom, but it wasn't actually a direct move. He wanted to move to a small team called the Linda McCartney squad so that he could be the leader of the team. And what happened, that team fell apart, and Kevin Livingstone found himself without a contract and decided to switch across to Team Telecom.
This is Jörg Jatsk. We've just seen him get dropped. He's trying to hang on as long as he can as he makes his way up towards the summit here. We caught a glimpse there of Vladimir Belli, the rider who was disqualified in the Giro d'Italia when he had that fight on top of the mountain. But he is in there, and he's having a great season. He had a high finish in the Tour of Switzerland on the podium there as well. There's the dizzy heights as we look away from the helicopter onto the road of the Col de la Madeleine. And I tell you what, this is going to be a destructive day today, because also riding alongside Ullrich is Vinokurov, and he was the rider, remember, who got away in that breakaway the other day that gained half an hour. He had the ill luck to puncture, and once he was back in the pack, the US Postal stopped chasing the break, and he's a danger man too.
It's going to be interesting to get more into this group just now to see what teammates are up along with Lance Armstrong, because in the past we've always seen Armstrong riding very close to the front. Right now we've got Kevin Livingston setting the pace on the front, followed by Andreas Kloden, a man we think will be fantastic in the future. There is Jan Ullrich, and I can't see anywhere in this group for the moment Lance Armstrong, and that's a big surprise.
Well, I tell you right now, if we could put a camera at the back of this, we would find Bobby Julich in trouble, because he is now hanging on to the tail of this first peloton as well. Now, that's a little bit of a surprise, but the tempo that Ullrich's Telecom team are doing up here, this race is going away from Postal at the moment, but don't get too excited yet. It's a long way to go.
It's an awful long way to go. We've not even reached the 114th kilometre. So these riders right now, Phil, are still looking at more than 100 kilometres and 3 more summits before we get to the finish at the Alpe d'Huez.
And those summits can be so difficult. Take, for example, the one we're on now, the Col de la Madeleine. 24.8 kilometers, climbing at 6.3%, meaning every 100 feet the road rises 6.3 feet ahead of you. There is Stefan Yargard showing battle scars. Welcome back. We're looking at some of the riders suffering, absolutely suffering at the back of the peloton. And there is Jonathan Vaughters of Colorado, riding for Crédit Agricole, but he is off the back, and just behind him is another American. Where is Bobby Julich? A moment ago, he was right there on Vaughters' wheel. Julich, born in Texas, he too has lived in Colorado, now calls Philadelphia, Pennsylvania home. No sign of Bobby Julich, and that is not good news. Now, this was moments ago. There is Bobby Julich riding without hat or helmet, not breathing particularly hard, but having trouble keeping the pace of the peloton. As Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin mentioned, it has been a fairly quick early part of today's stage, and now with less than 100 kilometers to go, that's 62 miles of riding, they have some massive climbs, all the heaviest climbing still ahead of them all. So the Americans struggling early on. There's the Telecom team with Kevin Livingston helping to force the pace behind the 3 riders out front. A dramatic day, stage 10 of this year's Tour de France. Right now standing by, Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwin.
The tempo has been as quick as you'll ever see in a stage of the Tour de France, and it has caused absolute carnage behind today on this, the first of 3 major climbs, and riders have been dropped very early on. Bobby Julich of the United States doesn't appear to be suffering, but he can't hold the pace either, and it seems he's told Jonathan Vaughters to try and rejoin the leaders because he can't. And this man here has come out with a plan today, and he's got the team to do it.
We'll just check on the face there of Jan Ullrich in 3rd position in the white jersey as the man who is champion of Germany this year. He's totally concentrated, and the 2 riders in front of him are setting the race absolutely on fire. This is Andreas Kloden, 26 years of age. He's trying to really blow the race apart. This is further back down the mountain. Riders disappearing completely. Sylvain Chavanel, we've seen him do a lot of work for Team Bonjour. They are hoping that their man, Francois Simon, can stay in the group. But with this kind of pressure, Phil, I don't believe that Simon can stay there. He's a great sprinter and not a magic climber.
Well, the gap is coming down, as you can imagine. 9:15, that's Pinotti waving at the camera. I don't know why. This is Nardello, our hero of stage 1, when he fell off with injured that elbow so severely. Still, even after a week of riding, it's heavily bandaged, but he is such a great bike rider, the new champion of Italy here. Just losing a little bit of space now, but he may not lose too much before the top, and he may have a chance to rejoin on the descent. He's a very good downhiller. We're wishing back through with our motorbike now to look at the breakaway, which is becoming a hugely selective ride of men here. This rider sitting in the back is Marcelino Garcia of Spain. And one Lotto rider left, Rick Verbrugge just about, and Vinokurov is on the other side, looking as though he has now decided enough is enough. He's done as much work as he can for Ullrich, and Ullrich has lost a strong man in Vinokurov there. He's dropping back. 4 riders losing contact. The big names we have still to confirm, but we're sure they're there. Balocchi, Morrow, Ullrich we've seen, and Armstrong we are yet to see. Lance not dictating the pace today, probably because he hasn't got the team around him which will allow him to do that. He is going to have to watch the whereabouts of Ullrich and try and make the best use of the Telecom team.
Armstrong is going to have to ride a very sensible and tactical race right now because he's lost a lot of teammates. We haven't got complete confirmation of the full group in the front here with Jan Ullrich. I would have to believe that Roberto Heras is still there, but riders like Yaroslav Ekimov, Tyler Hamilton, George Hincapie, Stefan Kjaergaard, they are having a very hard time. This is Jose Luis Rubiera. Now this is good. He looks right good at the moment, Phil. He's gone back to the car to take on board some drinks. So Armstrong at the moment, as far as I can figure out, has two teammates in the group, Roberto Heras and Jose Luis Rubiera. Those are the two men that were brought into this team to look after him in the mountains. They have to come into their own today.
Well, we've seen Laurent Jalabert up here. The white jersey of the left there is Belly. On the middle here is Christophe Moreau. Kevin Livingstone all of a sudden has popped out of the woodwork now. There is Francois Simon taking a drink. Far right picture in the blue. He is the new yellow jersey of the Tour right now. He said this morning he would give it his best shot, and he's doing just that. This is becoming a superbly select group as we now rejoin the two front runners, 9¼ minutes up the road. A minute behind these two is the dropped Antonio Taula now, but he's settling in at his own rhythm again as we head up towards the summit of the Col de Madeleine, and this has got to be done twice more today. And I find it so surprising to see so many riders here in trouble. This is a chase group trying to rejoin. It looks as though they might get back. Driven on here, and rider on the right is Vinokurov, and behind in the red is Rick Verbrugge of Belgium. As we're now looking at them coming back on, they've got back.
Well, they've obviously slowed down a little bit at the front of the main group. That is Vermote from Lotto in the group, and they've reintegrated the leading group of riders, which is still around about 40 men strong. But that is a remarkable ride, Phil, by Francois Simon to be in a very select group like this, because he's not a great climber, and he is hoping today that he will put the yellow jersey onto his shoulders at the end of the stage, 18 years after his brother Pascal. There he is, just riding alongside Didier Roos. This is the man who, at the end of the day, if he puts in a performance like this, could end up being the yellow jersey.